Welcome back to Rollin with Olan. I am so excited today for my guest. Um, I am just, man, there's so many words that I have to say about John. John Morrissey is a film producer, writer, teacher, actor, so much more, and really just a great guy. You know, this isn't the first time that we tried to do this. We tried to do this one other time with you, John, or maybe it was a couple other times. So first of all, I just want to say John is, of course, a film producer known for his work on a number of feature films, most notably American History X. John, you've done so much. I mean, you did that movie. You did Booty Call starring Jamie Foxx, Havoc starring Anne Hathaway, Badge starring Billy Bob Thornton, Kingdom Come starring Whoopi Goldberg. I could go on and on. You've produced so much. Good to see you, John.
Great to see you, Jeff, and thanks for having me on your show. I love rolling here with Owen.
I love it. I love it. And thank
Now,
you
Jeff,
again. Yeah.
I got to tell you, I know that I was familiar with you as a casting director for extras for atmosphere in films and television, and I've learned that you also have cast some films actually as a casting director, haven't you?
Yeah, I have done some films. I try to stay busy in the space as much as I can. But we could get to that later on, John. This is really about you, and I appreciate you bringing it up because you know, as we are in this industry, my friend, um, you've got to put yourself out there, try different things, and yes, so I have been I've been busy.
Well, I can. Here's the thing. We can talk plenty about me. Believe me, turn me on, and I'll blab about myself all night long. But I am, because of your experience in casting, I am curious what your thoughts are about the fact that this is the first year ever that the Academy Awards are having a category for casting directors.
Couldn't be more thrilled. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for bringing it up. It's taken a long time for that to happen. It is the first year, and I know all casting directors across the board have got to be thrilled about it. It's long overdue, and it's just going to add to the show because as being a producer, casting is we're not in there you know just fiddling. There's a lot to look at, and it takes a lot of time to get the talent for movies such as yours. And so it's really going to be great to have that included now in the Academy Awards. So thank you for
I
bringing
can
that
say
up.
so. I'm really pleased about it. And, I was an actor for a long time. Prior to being a producer, I went to drama school out of college. My heroes were stage actors. I didn't have much ambition toward working on screen. I did later, but not initially. I wanted to work on stage, and I did. I did a lot of regional theater. I did a lot of off Broadway. I did a Broadway show, and and I had my perspective of casting directors as an actor, and then when I became a producer, of course, I had a different view, and it's startling the change in my perspective, and my how quickly I began to realize that there's a real art to casting directors. And I have a couple of friends who are, you know, established good casting directors. One of them is retired now, Rick Pagano. You probably know
Sure,
him.
big time.
Valerie McCaffrey, who
Oh, absolutely. She's doing a movie right now, actually. Some friends of mine are doing.
yeah, she's terrific,
Yeah.
and she cast American History X. Um, and I've had the luck to work with some other terrific casting directors. I've done several films with Mary Vernew and her
Yeah.
associates, Felicia Fisano and others. So I have a lot of respect for casting directors. So I don't mean to dwell on it for too long, but I was
No,
just
no, you
curious.
did. No, I appreciate that because it's the respect that we have to give to anybody in this industry who works their tails off to get where we are. And speaking of that, you certainly have worked your tail off over the years. I'd like to go back a little bit though. I'd like to find out, like, how did you? Well, first of all, where did you grow up, John?
Well, I grew up traveling, Jeff. I it's hard. It's a hard question to answer, which sounds like a really preposterously arrogant answer, but it's the truth. My mother was divorced before I was one,
Mm.
and she went to work for a young singer who was on her way up named Eartha Kitt. You
Oh,
probably are
sure.
familiar
Wow.
with Eartha. And which was very adventurous because I'm an old guy. This was the early 50s, and Eartha is black. She's an African American singer. And there were very, very few African Americans that were really in the mainstream at that time. There was a huge industry of black entertainment, but in the mainstream, there was Sammy Davis and
Yeah.
even Sidney Poitier hadn't even emerged yet. Um, but Eartha, and she was in a show called New Faces of 1952. They used to do these annual shows, New Faces, and the New Faces of 1952 was unusually successful and had really a lot of talented people in it. And it went on tour, and we toured with the show. So we drove through the country, usually driving Eartha, although very often she would either travel in the bus or more likely some gentleman would be flying her, sponsoring her to fly to the next location. But that was several years. And then my mother thought, well, I should settle down. This isn't good for my son, which is a shame. I wish she'd stayed in the business in
I
Hollywood
bet.
and not caused me to wait 20 years. But she got married. First we moved to Washington, D.C. I was born in Chicago,
Oh,
but while we were on the road with Eartha, my grandparents, that's why I was born there, my mom's parents lived there, they moved to Washington, D.C. So when we came off the road with Eartha, we went to Washington, D.C., and my mother was courted by the man who became my stepfather. And so I spent a few years in D.C., and then she got married, and we moved to Long Island, and we lived in Long Island. Then I went to boarding school, a couple of different boarding schools, and then I was, I don't know, I was a pretty rebellious kid, and the 60s had come along. So I ran away from home when I was 16
wow.
and traveled the country for about a year and a half, worrying the bejesus out of my mom and
I'll
dad.
bet.
And during that time, my stepfather had started working in Tokyo. My mother had finally joined him. And then when things came back together, I went back to join them in Japan. And I graduated from high school in Tokyo. So you can see I
You
really
jumped
did
around.
as a kid,
Yeah.
kind of rootless, which was terrific in some ways and lousy in some ways, being rooted in a community with people that going to school with kids that I think is very healthy for someone. And I didn't have that. On the other hand, I had an enormous amount of exposure and experience of life and
Right.
of the world and of travel. It very much informed my worldview. So then I went to college. I went to Middlebury College in Vermont, and then spent a year of that, my junior year in England at
Wow.
University of London, and then came back, graduated, and then returned to England for drama school. I went to the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. And then I came back and started trying to work as an actor.
Yeah. Well, look, I just want to go.
No period.
Yeah, I want to go back. Well, first of all, that is a lot of moving around, and I also want to say that Eartha Kitt. For any of the young people listening, look up Eartha Kitt. I mean, legendary. But
oh yeah, Santa Baby. People know the song
Yeah.
Santa Baby really, really well.
unbelievable. And
Not about her.
what a story on that though, because like you said, you did that, and then you went off and you traveled, and then you came back and you studied as an actor, and you did a lot of acting, and you even did some off Broadway and Broadway, didn't you?
Yeah. I did a bunch of off Broadway, including a couple of big hits. and in both cases of the big hits, I started as an understudy and then took over a part. But and then I did. I talk about my Broadway experience. I did Kingdoms with Armando Sante
Right.
and Maria Tucci, a magnificent actress, and of course you know the name Tucci. Stanley is her
Of course.
brother, I think. And a British actor named Roy Dotrice, and it was about Napoleon and the Pope, and it was the first professional job that Val Kilmer ever had. So we were in this together, and we toured. You know, we went out of town. So we were in Massachusetts, we were in Maryland, we were at the Kennedy Center too. At the Kennedy Center, Val and I used to go over to my uncle. My uncle was a newscaster, and he would cast. He would work at night, and we would go over to his house because he had a machine where he had one of the first video games. Do you know what I mean? And we would play. Val and I late into the night, and then he would get home. Charlie would get home. He would substitute for Ted Koppel on a show called Nightline, which was
Nightline, sure, many years.
And he'd get home, and then he'd play, and we'd all be there at 4:00 in the morning. And then Val quit.
Oh.
He was his first job. He was on his way to Broadway. We were at the Kennedy Center, and there was a bit of a controversy with the director, and he quit. And I thought, what was the matter with him? Well, I found out. We got to New York. He was already appearing on Broadway in a play called Slag Boys with Sean Penn and I can't remember, Kevin. Anyway, with a couple of other stars.
Yeah.
And so he had left. He didn't tell anybody he had this offer.
That's crazy.
Waiting for it. But I brag about being on Broadway. Let me tell you, in this show, my Broadway debut, I had one line.
Okay. But you were Broadway. It's not easy to get to Broadway.
I was cast in an original American drama, which there are maybe 2 or 3 done on Broadway every year. So, yeah, I felt lucky to be there. Although it wasn't exactly the lead.
That's okay. But you were there, and you had quite the acting career, because also, I just kind of you also played a few soap opera villains. I read this. You were on back in the day. You were a villain on what? General Hospital and Guiding Light.
Both. Yeah. First, I was on General Hospital, and I played Stavros Kazadine, the Greek mafia. And I was, Elizabeth Taylor had been a fan of General Hospital, and she came down apparently and did one day on the show. She performed on the show for one day.
Elizabeth Taylor.
Wow. Not when I was there. It was long before me, and she was really infatuated with Tony Geary, who played Luke. Luke and Laura were the focal point of General Hospital for several years, these characters. And Elizabeth Taylor loved the show, loved them both, particularly Luke. And she actually came down to the studio a couple times when I was on the show, just to visit Tony. And they would sit in his dressing room, and they would, Anyway, so she had been on this show for one day, and I was playing her nephew, now the head of the Greek mafia, and I would have scenes with her photograph, and I would pick up a photograph, like this, talking to her photograph, and I'd say, Helena, I know what you would say. You would say. It was silly. It was fun, but I loved the show. It was a lot of fun. The leading lady on the show, Jeannie Francis, was someone I admired enormously and was very, very fond of. And of course, she went on and did other things, and she's back on the show now, I think. Happily
Yeah.
married to Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek, and they have a happy family. Um,
Full.
the Tony Geary, I think, passed away.
Yeah, he did. I think a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
he was a very nice guy, and actors are concerned with how they look. I can see myself now here, and I'm trying not to look too much at me.
You got a great look. You
I
got a
get
great look.
distracted by actors get distracted by that. Tony Geary was famous for saying, "I don't have any good angles. You can
Yeah.
shoot me any way you want to. I don't look good from any angle,"
Yeah.
and that level of relaxation about himself is part of what made him so endearing and charming to people. He was a very popular character, and he was very good on the show.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
you
then
know.
I did, subsequent to that, I did Guiding Light in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and I played on General Hospital. I was a villain. Stavros Kassadine was a villain.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the original Stavros Kassadine. There were several, much later. Jeannie went back, and they had another guy play my part, and then somebody play my son. The I didn't watch it in those days, so I don't know if 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 Laura or Jeannie was supposed to be the mother of the son, or if I was the son from a Greek. I don't know. Um, I had a good time
Yeah.
on Guiding Light as well.
Yeah.
Although it wasn't quite as joyous, it was for me at that point. It was kind of like um, work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Guiding Light was a good show with some very good people on it, and I had a lot of respect for them. But for me, I'd been acting for a while, and it began to occur to me during my tenure on Guiding Light that I wasn't going to go where I had wanted to go. I I hadn't done Broadway. Yeah, I know. I guess I already had, and I had begun to really want it for a while, have a career in movies, and then I'd begun to think it's not going to happen because there's something missing in me as an actor,
Mm-hmm.
and I think actually what it was that I had begun to drink. I'm an alcoholic. I'm let's see, I'm 26, 32 years sober now. So
Congratulations. Wow.
yeah.
Mm.
But at the time, I was not sober. And I think it was very much in my way.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I came out to LA after Guiding Light, and I did episodic stuff for a while.
Yeah.
But then I met a guy at a party whose name is Cassian Elwes.
Uh-huh. Big time producer, right? Another one.
Spectacular film producer,
Yeah.
many movies. But he was the stepson of a film producer named Elliot Kastner.
Mm-hmm.
And he was good friends, grew up with Rob Lowe,
Mm-hmm.
down the street from Rob Lowe. And so Elliot, his stepfather, kind of inspired him to go into the movie business. And this was at a time in the mid 80s through the 90s, really, where foreign sales had begun to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And you could pre-sell movies directly to video and make them very, very inexpensively. And Cassian was making one after the other. And I met him at a party, and he was talking about this. So I invited him to dinner. And my girlfriend at the time, who later became my wife,
Mm-hmm.
and he and his wife at the time went out to dinner. And he said to me, I'll never forget this. He said to me, there was a whole rage of ninja movies. And he said, I'll make any movie with the word ninja in the title. I said, really? And then a little later in the conversation, he said, I'll make any good erotic movie. And he had made a good erotic movie just before, I think with his brother, a Carrie Elwes was in it called Warm Summer Rain. Anyway, he
Uh-huh.
said, I'll make any erotic movie. So I said to him, Cassian, let's make a parody of 9.5 Weeks,
Huh.
which was a famous erotic
Yeah.
movie, and call it 9.5 Ninjas.
And you love that, right?
He fell on the floor laughing. I went back to my apartment, and next door to me was a writer. And the next morning, I went to the writer's place and said, "Can you write a movie called 9.5 Ninjas? How quickly can you do it?" And he wrote it, and we got it made.
Wow.
And it was, by the way, terrible, 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 terrible movie.
So was
Um,
that your first outing in producing?
what?
That was your first outing as a producer?
My first outing as a producer.
Wow.
But I upped my game.
Yeah,
For,
you did. You up your you definitely did. I want to get into that a little bit, John. How did you make the change from really acting and producing? We both know that everybody in this industry can, if they want to, make a shift and what have you. Where did that shift come for you? Where you went from? I mean, I hear about this ninja movie. Did you continue doing more after that? I mean, lead us into
yeah,
that.
of course. For me, it really was what I just said. I ran into a guy at a party, and he was standing alone, and I didn't know him, but I started chatting with him, and he told me a little about his producing. I had no idea who Elliot Kastner was. I didn't know anything about anything, and but I liked the idea of what he was doing, and I thought I could do that. I could do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I invited him to dinner, and we went out to dinner, and our conversation was enjoyable. And Cassian is a great guy,
Mhm.
and we had a conversation that I just iterated for you, and I got this movie with his aid made. 9.5 Ninjas. Again, it's like a student film, a bad
Uh-huh.
film. But
But you did it.
I certainly caught the bug with it,
Yeah.
and the so then I continued to try to pursue it. I had good fortune that my girlfriend, whom I married, her father was in the business,
Hmm.
and he helped me get started. Um, and that was significant because I was able to be considered for a couple of jobs
Hmm.
um, that I never would have probably gotten otherwise. And the first one was working for Lou Arkoff and and uh, and Willie Cutler at a company called Marathon, a company that never got a movie made, unfortunately. Um, but they had a deal at
Yeah.
Columbia Pictures when Frank Price, I think, was
Hmm.
running Columbia Pictures, and Lou Arkoff was the son of a very legendary producer named Sam Arkoff,
Sammy Var.
and
Yeah.
I really caught the bug there, and I did a lot of script reading and notes, and they would take me to meetings, and and I learned about how to pitch and how to analyze scripts, and I'm a literary, how do I say, person, I guess. I like to read. I read a lot.
Yeah.
And my major in college was English, and I've always enjoyed writing, and I've always experimented with it. So I thought I had a feel for writing and for choosing material. So when they went out of business, Marathon Entertainment,
Yeah.
uh, I was able to get just a room on the lot at Columbia Pictures at
Nice.
Sony. No overhead, no
Hmm.
assistant, no nothing, but a room
Right.
and a telephone. And I started trying to get material and call. And I had learned about being an executive working for Lou and Willie.
Lou.
So
Yeah.
I had lists of agents that had been the people I was supposed to contact and stay in touch with on behalf of Marathon Entertainment. So I still had these lists, of course, and I would start calling them on behalf of myself and getting whatever material I could. And I got some scripts I thought were good, and I finally found one that I went back to Cassian with, and he said, "Yeah, I'll make this," and we got that one done, and that was not as bad as my first movie.
Okay, John, if I may, I'm going to jump around just for time wise. I want to.
Oh yeah, sure.
I want to
warn you, Jeff. When you ask me,
I know, no, that's okay.
I'll talk until you stop me.
Well, I want to get some stories on you. So, obviously you got into producing, and you've been doing so much since then. You've been doing, a lot of things. I want to jump into, because I think it would be really great. Now, obviously a lot of things happen from the stories you're telling right now until this. But in 1998, okay, you got a script, I believe. How did you get connected with? Because you're the main producer on American History X. I think that's so important that the audience hears about that, because obviously Ed Norton being nominated for an Oscar and all that. I mean, incredible. And you had Elliot Gould and Beverly D'Angelo in it, and Eddie Furlong, who I just worked with not long ago. Can you tell us about that? And I'm sorry to take you out. I don't care if you want to go back a little bit.
No,
I want stories, man. These are great.
There's a lot of interesting stories about American History X, and I'm happy to talk about it. American History X was a spec script, and I'm sure most of the people in your audience know what a spec script is. Mm-hmm. It is a script written speculatively by a writer and then sent out to producers and buyers and in an attempt to sell it. And I got it as a spec script. And I knew it had gone to multiple producers, and I submitted it to Sony, where by that time I was partners with Larry Terman, a magnificent producer.
I wanted you to talk about him too, yeah.
He produced The Graduate, and he was a mentor to me and a partner. At any rate, I submitted it to Columbia, but Amy Pascal had become the president of production there. Hey, what's the name of your cat?
Dolly.
Dari?
Dolly's meeting the audience for the first time. There's Dolly. Dolly the cat.
Dolly. Amy Pascal had become president of production. I had just made Booty Call for Columbia Pictures. And, Booty Call is not Amy Pascal's kind of material. Not at all. Yeah. She's very highbrow in the best way. She's highly intelligent, gifted, smart, terrific producer. But she was not interested really in making a movie for the producer of A Booty Call. Mm-hmm. So I don't think she gave American History X the kind of read that it deserved. However, I immediately after they passed, set it up at another studio. That studio promptly went out of business. And I sat on the script for a while, and then I took it to New Line. Mm-hmm. And I submitted it there, and they bought it, They wanted Steve Tisch to come on as an executive producer because he had been one of the producers that got it originally, same time I did. He had submitted it there, and they had passed on it. And when he heard, hey, they're making the movie now with this other producer, he's an Academy Award-winning guy. Yeah. And I sort of felt initially like, oh, he's muscling in on my movie here. Who is this guy? But the fact is, he turned out to be great. He and I became good friends, and he was very helpful to me in the post-production process of American History X. Really helpful. At any rate, he would come around to the set too, but he didn't have much to do with production, and he had nothing to do with the development. But he was an executive producer, and he was helpful in the end. I was the sole produced by credit, yes. Only produced by credit. And I think I earned it. I helped develop the script anyway. We with New Line, we found a writer, a director, and the writer and the director, Tony Kaye, and I sat in the backyard of my house. I was married by that time, for 3 months, going over the screenplay. And the director, Tony Kaye, a very odd guy, was a little scary in some of his ideas.
Mhm.
And yet some of them were really, really good. And David, the writer, and he initially were very much on the same wavelength. And Tony, it turned out later, was taking the script to every script consultant in town and paying them hundreds of dollars to give him notes.
Wow.
And most of them were not very good, but some of them were very, very good. And he made a definitive contribution to the script. So we got it. We got greenlit by the studio, and then we went into auditions. And because of the nature, and you see, when I said I think I have a sensitivity to material, I think I do. And I understood how good this screenplay was,
Mhm.
even though it scared people. I also read scripts from the perspective of an actor, and I really understood how powerful all of the roles in the movie were, particularly the lead role. And when we started casting, it proved to be true. I mean, so many actors wanted to play that part, and we auditioned many, many, many of them.
How'd you land on Ed?
What?
I mean, he's a great actor, but how did you land on Ed Norton?
Well,
Do you recall?
we were during the audition process. I got a call from a man I knew. I knew him fairly well, named Ed L'Amato. I'm sure you knew who Ed L'Amato is.
Yep.
He was probably the premier talent agent in town at the time. He worked for ICM. That's where he had his offices. And clients, he represented Michelle Pfeiffer, Mel Gibson, Denzel Washington, lots of others, all at once. Richard Gere, he was
Top of the top.
real thing, and he had a voice that he could have done movie commercials. Yeah, this beautiful, deep, basso profundo voice.
Sounds
And I get the call, and I answer it, and the voice says, hold for Ed L'Amato. So I hold for Ed L'Amato, and then I hear John. Hi, Ed. He says, my client is interested in your film. And when he said that, he didn't even say the name, because I knew he had just made an arrangement with Brian Swartstrom, who's a manager, and who had Edward Norton. I knew he had just made an arrangement to represent Ed. So I knew he was talking about Edward Norton. And at that moment, the moment he said, my client is interested in your film, I knew I was going to get a green light on this movie.
Yeah.
Edward came in. He didn't come in to read. He wanted to do a screen test. He requested it.
Oh.
And so we shot him in a screen test. And he was very prepared. He had cut his hair very short, not shaved his head, but it was, very short. And he'd put tattoos on himself. And he knew the material. And Tony Kaye, the director, who has a visual gift that is really immeasurably superb. He just set Edward sitting somewhere and hung some things around him and shot it in black and white, and it was masterful. And Edward was great. And this taping became well known. Studio heads subsequently called me and asked me if they could see it, please. Sherry Lansing called me and said,
Wow.
I'd love to see this. Terry called me from, I mean, I just got, a lot of people wanted it. Tony, the director, didn't agree. He didn't think that Edward was right. He said he's a good actor,
Right.
but I don't think he's right. and Tony watched the movie Primal Fear, which was Edward's
Previous.
only film.
Mhm.
During this period, his second movie, which was Everyone Says I Love You from Woody Allen, was released. But the people knew him from Primal Fear, the thing with Richard Gere. And Tony just didn't want him. So he was so adamant that I had to go to Bob Shea, who owned New Line, along with his partner, Michael, someone. And I asked permission to fire Tony.
Yeah.
So Bob Shea talked it over with Mike DeLuca, who was his president of production, and they said, okay, you can fire him. We'll replace him.
You had another director, right?
What?
You had another director that you had brought in at one point in time, or you were going to?
No, there was another director attached to the script when it was first submitted, and I set it up initially with him. But when I went to New Line, they wouldn't make the movie with him. They had done a film with him, and they weren't happy with it. He's a nice guy. We gave him a credit on the film and paid him a fee, which was not required, but I felt loyal to him. But no, I didn't have a director at the time I wanted to replace Tony. It's just that he wasn't going to hire Edward. And I thought Edward is our key to this movie. And so Bob Shea said to me, you can replace him as long as you replace him with someone that Edward will approve. So we started to look. In the meantime, Tony Kaye went to New York and paid for 3 days of open auditions, then went to Chicago and did the same thing, and came up with an actor that he thought should play the part. And he came back, and he didn't accept the fact that he'd fired. I told him he was fired. I told him we were looking for another director. Everybody knew it. He said, no, I'm not fired. I'm not fired. And he came back and said, I want you to see this. So we got together in the screening room at New Line. Bob Shea, Mike DeLuca, Brian Whitten, the executive on the movie, myself, my partner, Larry Sherman, Tony, and we put up the audition of the guy that Tony had found in New York. He was good, he did a good reading. There was nothing the matter with him.
Yeah.
And then we put up Edward's taping.
Quite the difference.
And when the lights came up, there was total silence in the room for, really 30 or 40 seconds. It doesn't sound like much when you say it, but in that situation, it is an eternity. And finally, Tony stood up and said, all right, we'll use Edward, and walked out of the room. And that was how it came together. There were many, many events in the course of making the movie. And then in post-production, there were some problems because Tony Kaye was got a little nutty. What happened was when we finished the movie and we screen tested it did extremely well. It did like 89% in the top two boxes, which, as you know, in a test screening is very, very, very good.
Yeah.
And Mike DeLuca called us into his office. He was thrilled. He was overjoyed. He said, this is what if you had done 50, I would have been happy. 60 would have been great.
Right.
But this is amazing.
Yeah.
And Tony, unfortunately, said at that point, well, there's a couple things I'd like to do. And Michael said, you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
Well, that was a problem.
That was a problem from Ed. Wasn't it a problem for Ed? Wasn't there something in the end there where Ed Norton
the editing was a problem for Ed, right? But we were already, in the editing room. But Ed didn't have a problem until after the first screening. Ed's concern was Ed
Come
had
on,
some
spill it.
Ed had some concerns about the editorial style. Um, I think it's fair to say and reasonable to Ed to say that his concerns, maybe the main one was that it was edited too tight,
Hmm.
that the performances weren't given enough room to breathe.
Yeah.
But Ed then, unfortunately, Mike DeLuca, in one of the few bad decisions this man has made in his career, gave Edward Norton the permission to do his own cut, and he
Mm,
gave him a spot in the editing room, and this drove Tony Kaye out of his mind.
right.
And 3 days in, he looked at what Ed was doing and went insane. And things got really problematic then.
Yeah. Didn't
Um,
he want at one point in time? Didn't he want to put some other name on the screen instead of his own? In the end,
yeah, he wanted to be
like
credited as
Humpty Dumpty
directed
or
by
something. Yeah. Yeah.
Humpty Dumpty. But the DGA would not permit that. So
Yeah.
he sued the DGA, and he sued the owners of New Line, and he sued Mike DeLuca. I'm the only person he didn't sue.
Thank goodness.
And But Edward has, there is a legend has grown up that Edward had a lot of input in the cut. I know the cut of this film extremely well, all the
Yeah.
versions of it. There isn't more than 90 seconds of difference from what Tony finally cut and what Edward did. And what
Yeah.
Edward did was add a couple beats to one of his scenes with Beverly D'Angelo. Um, the But I'm not interested in talking about the controversies. I mean,
No. Exactly.
people I care for.
Look, what a powerful film, and did you anticipate how American History X would be used later on in classroom and discussions about extremeness and the identity of it? I mean, had you anticipated any of that?
Not fully. But I'll tell you something. That television show, Ted Koppel, I referred to earlier,
Your
Nightline,
deadline.
Nightline, was hosted by, for those of you who don't know, and many of you won't because it was long ago, was
Yeah.
hosted by a man named Ted Koppel, one of the greatest interviewers I've ever seen. Unbelievably astute, quick-witted interviewer. And during the release of American History X, which was short-lived because it was not successful in its initial theatrical run, during the release, Koppel hosted a show in which the subject was the impact of violence in cinema on our culture. And I thought, oh boy, we might be in for trouble here because there's not a lot of violence in American History X, but the violence that's there is very extreme. And but to my joy, the film American History X was highlighted on Koppel's show as the example of how to do violence properly because it's played out in the movie. The consequences of the violent acts are examined. It isn't just violence with no consequences. You see the full consequences. And that was very important to us in the film. For us in making the film, I think for the writer, for David and for Tony, and certainly for myself, Edward, it was about what is the source of this hatred?
Mm-hmm.
Where does prejudice come from? What is it? What good does it do? And of course, there is a kind of a answer in the film specifically related to Derek, Edward's character,
Mm-hmm.
what sent him on the route of racial prejudice and hatred. But it was really emblematic of that it has to come from something. It is not born into us. and it does nothing for us, but eat away at us. And this
Yeah.
is a point that the film makes, and I think that it is resonant, and I think it still resonates today. And I think that you should send this entire video clip over to Mike DeLuca at Warner's and remind him it's time to re-release this film.
Absolutely, I agree. I agree. Very well said, John. Very well said. Look, I applaud you on doing it, and so many other things. And again, getting back to time, I'd like to just shift gears just a little bit. Can you break down for the audience? I think it's really important. It took me a long time to understand this. Can you break down for the audience the difference between a producer, a line producer, a production manager, and a creative producer?
Sure. I mean, the lines in some cases are vague, but in some cases not. Production manager is a DGA job. DGA
Directors
is
Guild of America, right?
And you are designated as a production manager by the DGA. And production managers are responsible for making sure that everything happens on the set that is supposed to happen. The production managers are the ones who are in touch with all of the vendors, all of the companies, all of the suppliers of equipment, the film the production management department runs that. And the production manager is the key to that. And the good production managers are extremely well paid and unbelievably valuable. Unbelievably valuable. They are masters and they are producers, but their designation per the DGA is production manager. Now, production managers often double as and work as line producers. A line producer is not responsible for all of the relationships with the vendors and the suppliers and all of that, but he is responsible for what happens to all that stuff when it comes to the set and what happens on the set. So as the producer sitting in his office, Mike DeLuca now heading Warner Brothers, he's a producer, Mike. He'll call. He want to check in with the production manager and with the line producer about what happened. What happened today? What's the plan for tomorrow? That kind of. And the line producer is the most responsible for all of the technical material on the set. The producer, and let's call him the creative producer. I resent that title because I think everyone who works on a movie is creative.
It's creative.
You do. There's the creative grip. There's every job is creative.
Yeah.
But it's a designation to make a distinction, and the distinction is that this is the guy who has found the material, put it together, perhaps found the financing or found the studio who will finance it or put together independently financing. There's many ways to get a movie made. Fewer and fewer these days, but anyway, still there are multiple ways. The producer has done that, has found the material, often has supervised the casting. I'm very involved. I've line produced a movie, but I would never line produce a movie again because I'm too good a producer to hire myself as the line producer.
Right.
I'm good enough at that.
Yeah.
But I like to be on the set. I like to have a strong relationship with the director, and it's frustrating to me when I don't. Most of the films that I've produced, I've very actively produced, and quite a few of them I've been the only producer of. But of course, that means there would be a line producer, and then there will be executive producers and a production manager. But I like to have my hand in, But you can't always do that, and it isn't always possible. And sometimes a couple of things are happening at the same time. So those are really the primary distinctions: production manager, line producer, and producer or creative producer.
That's a great. Thank you for breaking that down. I think it's really important. I want to talk to you because you're a producer. You're still producing. As a producer, what's the process of getting scripts looked at? Because obviously you're also a writer. You've done plenty of writing yourself. You've had many. You're an established writer, and so what do you think that process is of looking at scripts, and what are you looking for as a producer?
I don't want to represent myself as an established writer. I've established myself as a writer, but I've never had a script made. But yes, I've written scripts that were optioned. Yeah.
But as a producer, what would you look for in a script?
Well, that's two different questions, Jeff. Two totally different questions. From the writer's perspective, in this town, less and less, but still 99%, you need an agent. A writer needs an agent, and the agent submits the script to production companies, individual producers, to directors, to talent, whatever is going to get the film made. How do you get a movie made? That's the question. You have a script, whether you're the writer or the producer or a director who wants to get it done. How do you get it done? What do you need? Well, the main key is often talent, but it's very, very hard to get talent without financing and without a director. Sometimes you can get talent just with a director, and the talent knows, okay, this movie isn't financed yet, but given my reputation and this director I want to work with, I think we can get it made. But when you go with a script, a naked script, as they call them, a script with no attachments and no money behind it, and you try to give that to an actor, you better be good friends with that actor.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, they're never gonna read it. They're never gonna get it. Their agent isn't gonna let them see it. An agent is not required to show a project that's been submitted for an actor to the actor unless there is financing and an offer attached to it. Mm-hmm. Then the agent is required to show it. Right? I don't know if they always do, but they're supposed to. But if there's no money and there's no offer, the agent just not even going to take your phone call. So getting the scripts to people is a real monumental mountain to climb. It's like being in the water at the base of the White Cliffs of Dover thinking, how can I get to the top? Once you have some kind of something attached, a director, for instance, then it's a lot easier to get people's attention.
Yeah.
And, scripts get submitted to studios all the time and to production companies all the time. I'm about to submit a couple myself that I've been working on that I haven't written myself, but that I've helped develop. And it's challenging. Try and find a company that'll have some interest in it. But
that's what it comes down to, right? I mean, it's someone having interest. Now, just with, again, I just want to jump around a little bit because I want to cover as much as we can, although I could have you on for hours. And I think we'll, next time, and hopefully we could do this again, we could go into more detail. But you've also taught students film at Michigan State University and Vermont College.
I've taught around a bit. And I went back to, in my 60s, I went back to get a master's degree, an MFA in film, and that was an interesting experience.
Challenge.
And so now I'm highly overeducated. I taught for several years, and I still do it occasionally, but I decided I really am a lot happier working on material.
Yeah. So you develop a lot. You were saying you develop a lot of scripts. And what are your John, I'm curious to know, what are your current views on the industry?
Well, you know, it's depressing, Jeff. It's concerning. I'd like to say, oh, I'm so optimistic, blah blah blah, this and that. Um, I I have a level of optimism. It's true. I have a degree to which I think when I look at myself in this picture, by the way, Jeff, am I looking into the camera?
You looking fine. Yeah. You are a
Am I
star.
looking into the camera now?
Yeah,
Or,
looks like you are. Looks like you are.
um,
I know we
good
always
eye.
do that, right?
I just was curious because I'm looking at you most of the time. I like
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, I'm doing the same. I'm doing the same.
Um, the My views on the industry are uh, very, very much impacted by a variety of things. Number one, as everyone likes to avail themselves of the easy excuse that COVID destroyed so much of the industry, there is some element of truth to that. The fact that during the COVID period, people turned to their television screens and to streaming, um, that people got more used to looking at movies like that. I did. I think everyone did.
Yeah.
Um, and furthermore, and there was a great benefit to that too, because not having quite enough to fill the demand, the streamers had to start importing foreign television series and foreign films and put them up with subtitles. And it got Americans more accustomed to subtitles, which has been terrific for the international film community. And I am very optimistic about that. The fact that other nations have been encouraged both financially and commercially, and in every way to increase the production of their films and to distribute them more widely and to send them over here. We notice that this year there's two international films
Hmm.
uh, nominated for Best Picture, and there's a third one that I think should have been called "It Was Just an Accident." But there's sentimental value, and there is the what is it the Secret Agent.
Hmm.
Um, and they're both nominated for Best Picture. And It Was Just an Accident is nominated for Best Screenplay. We're accepting international films, and I think that has a lot to do with what happened during COVID. But the bad thing that happened during COVID was that theaters started to close, and audiences got accustomed to not going to the movie theater because they can see things on Netflix, on Prime Video, on Hulu, on any of the streamers. This has caused a problem that I think is not easy to resolve.
Hmm.
I'm really encouraged by certain things. Some of the studios, Warner's uh, lately is one of them, that really is turning out films committed to theatrical distribution. Now, what's going to happen to Warner's since David Zaslav wants to sell it all off? I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what would happen, whether Netflix acquires it or whether Paramount acquires it. I'm afraid that the volume of films that Warner's is releasing may be decreased because Paramount has its own films and Netflix has its own stuff. But both Paramount and Netflix say that won't happen. We'll see. But large financiers, and that's mainly the studios, are not doing as much. They're not
Yeah.
doing as much.
Yeah.
And not as many movies are being made. And certain genres of films are being constricted to television. There's two movies came out this weekend, Jeff. Wuthering Heights and Crime 101.
Uh-huh.
Wuthering Heights, Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie
Yeah.
caught everyone's attention and has opened not ultra gangbusters, but very well. Certainly headed to profit, and it's doing well. Crime 101, which featured multiple Marvel stars in a contemporary crime drama that was very well reviewed, better reviews than Wuthering Heights, did not do good business. And people are speculating that the reason it didn't is because audiences are accustomed to seeing crime dramas now only on streamers. And they don't want to go out to the movie theaters to see the kind of movie that used to excite everybody.
Right.
And this is worrisome to me. This is
Yeah.
worrisome.
Well, let's turn that around into a little something. You've worked with so many great actors. Jamie Foxx, Ed Norton, we mentioned earlier, Anne Hathaway, Danny DeVito. Do you have any great fun stories? Who was your favorite to work with, and maybe why?
Well, I'll tell you, I just told this. I've started. My friend Collier Landry, who has podcasts of his own, mostly true crime stuff, very, very popular. He has a lot of followers. Wanted to start. He and I wanted to start a film-oriented podcast, and we've done so. We've only released 2 episodes so far, but in our next the episode that will be released this week, I tell the story of my favorite actor to work with and why she is. And she is Hilary Swank. If you want to hear that story, you're going to have to tune in to Movie Talk on the Collier Landry channel on YouTube. However, there's other stories I can tell you.
Yeah, please.
The booty call was a blast to make. Jamie Foxx and Tommy Davidson were the 2 guys in that movie. And Jeff Pollock directed it. Jeff Pollock may not have been an outstanding film director, but he had a terrific sense of comedy. Jeff Pollock, rest in peace. Terrific guy who unfortunately passed away quite a while ago now. But he brought Tommy Davidson and Jamie Foxx up to Toronto, where we made the film. And they spent 5 days reworking the script. And they would come out and we would have dinner at night and they would tell the jokes they'd put in and the stuff they were going to do. And it was absolutely hilarious. And it was just one of the fun experiences I've had. Then there's another film that Hilary Swank was in, and is the film in which the story of my why she's my favorite actress to work with, I told. But there were other terrific actors in it too. I loved working with Rachel Lee Cook, with Barbara Hershey. Patrick Swayze, I was particularly fond of. I became pretty good friends with Patrick. He's a great guy, and I really enjoyed working with him. But one fun story was with Colin Hanks and an actor named Stark Sands. And now, of course, all the names have gone right out of my head. But a terrific actor. You got to give me a moment here.
Dun, 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 dun. It's okay. Oh, where'd he go? Tony left. I mean, Tony, John left. Hello. This is it, everybody. Anybody who's watching, and you can watch YouTube. Make sure you watch YouTube. While John is gone, I do want to thank our sponsor, sourcingcast.com. Okay, John, you're back.
I am. And
with your glasses on.
I can't, for some reason, I'm an old man and my mind blanks sometimes.
Well, that's okay. We could.
One of my very favorite actors, Ben Foster.
Ben Foster, he's a great actor. Great actor.
And he was in this movie with Colin Hanks and Stark Sands and a lot of other people. But they played 3 teenagers together. And they are in a van. And in the van, in the scene, Ben, who is, just an amazingly good actor, was very unhappy and had to go to the bathroom while they're driving in the van. And Colin Hanks is driving. He says, "No, my dad's van, and we can't stop it. We got to." So Ben pees out the window, and Colin has to slam on the brakes, and the window slides and castrates Ben Foster. It sounds morbid, but but the night it was shot was hilarious, and the that was a lot of fun.
Well, John, look, you've obviously you've had a lot of fun on sets. You've done so much, and I really time wise, we try to keep these episodes down to about an hour or so. I could go on, and I do want to have you.
What are the other movies I produced, Jeff?
You don't know?
Yeah, I forget them all the time.
Oh, come on! You got Booty Call. Here we go. Hold on. I gotta remember some of the notes too, because obviously you've done quite a bit, and it's fabulous, to have you, John. One other thing I do want to talk about before we get into the other movie. You also have sat on the board of the jury for the Oscars for several years, haven't you?
No,
Aren't
I'm
you?
not. No, I no. That's a misnomer. The Oscars have certain categories that you have to volunteer to participate in.
Okay.
And I volunteer. I have for years volunteered to participate in the live action short and the international films.
Gotcha.
So I am among the people that create the short lists through my voting for the best international film. But I'm not on the board, and I don't have any.
The jury. You're the jury. Yeah. Well, John, look, you've done plenty. You did Havoc. Remember Havoc? With Anne Hathaway, of course.
Yeah, I do remember Havoc.
Badge with Billy Bob Thornton. See, we'll get there. Kingdom.
Working with Billy Bob was great. It was amazing. But I'll tell you a funny story about Havoc. This is a screenplay written by a 16-year-old girl initially.
Wow.
Called The Powers That Be, and New Line bought it. Then they didn't make it. They gave her a chance to rewrite it. It never got where it needed to go. So then later, they had it rewritten again, and it was they didn't. Then that draft was also not made. But when I acquired it, I brought it to Media 8, which was Mark Damon's company, to make it. And Barbara Koppel came on.
Barbara Koppel, big time, yeah.
Uh-huh. Two-time Academy Award winning director, who I've made 2 movies with, actually.
Wow.
She came in and we were doing auditions, and the 2 leading the 2 leading roles are girls, high school girls. And when Jessica wrote the screenplay originally, she wrote it about her friends, and an actress came in to read for one of the roles, and she came in and she did a good reading, and then she said to Barbara, "Barbara, this is me." And an actor will become and Barbara said, "Oh yeah, great. Well, you did a good job." She said, No. This role was written about me in high school, and it had been. She was the model for that character. It was interesting.
Wow.
We ended up with a great cast, and Anne Hathaway was terrific.
Yeah.
And we had Freddie Rodriguez and Mike, what's his name, in the leads. And we brought in Michael Biehn and Laura San Giacomo to play parents. We had a good time.
Quite the stories, John. Quite the stories. John, let me ask you about your, plug your podcast again, if you would, and tell us what else is going on with you.
It's called Movie Talk. It's on the Collier Landry channel on YouTube. And I'm just, I've been working on a few screenplays. One of them I'm really excited about. Spent a long time on. No, both of them I'm really excited about. One of them I'm the only producer. I've been working with one writer and me for about a year, based on his novel, a novel that I loved, and I believe we're going to be able to get it made. It's a very authentic story set in the world of the Tlingit Indians, the Native Americans, Alaska. And it's a supernatural thriller, and I'm really excited about it, called Ravens Stole the Moon.
Nice.
Yeah, it's nice. And then another thriller that there's a few producers and a couple of writers, and we've been bouncing back and forth with it. And we're ready to go out with it now. So, and that's called Koi Keeper.
Fantastic. John, I really want to thank you for coming on and making the time for Rollin with Olan, because you've got such great stories, and I'd love to do this again. Is there anything else you'd like to tell? Any story or anything that you want to leave us with?
No, it's been enjoyable talking to you, Jeff. And, I'd be happy to talk with you again anytime. But I think, I've blabbered enough already.
No, you did great. And I want to thank our friend Jennifer for, getting us together here. And, and I thank my audience, every single one of you, every single day. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Source and Cast. For any background actors, go to sourceandcast.com. They're in New York, Atlanta, California, and soon to be in other places. Thank you again, John. Thank you to my audience. And thank you once again, everybody, for Rollin with Olan. We'll see you on the next one.